Welcome to the second video in the Soul Captain series. This one is on charting the course. So a ship's captain needs to know where he's taking the ship, or if it's a mission he's on, for instance patrolling a coastline, he needs to have a clear understanding of what that mission is. And that understanding of either the destination or the mission helps him to make day-to-day decisions that will advance him towards whatever those goals are. So next I'd like to read you a poem by Robert Frost. This poem is called The Road Not Taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, just as fair and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear, although as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. The traveler in Robert Frost's poem was faced with a decision, and he had no clear criteria for making his choice. So he just chose one and not the other. He could have flipped a coin, or who knows how he made his decision. Life often gives us choices, and many times it's not significantly more difficult to take one of the branches than the other. Often one branch will lead us more towards a goal or a particular destination than another one will. But if we don't have the goal or destination in mind, if it's not clear in our consciousness, then we're apt to not factor it in as we make our decision. So it's important for us to be able to keep the goals in mind, and so we can take the opportunities as they arise. If not, we won't even recognize the opportunities until they've gone by. So one person that made this clear in a humorous way was Lewis Carroll. And I want to read you a little quote from his famous book, Alice in Wonderland. And this is Alice's interaction with the Cheshire Cat. I'm going to let you see the illustration here too, because these illustrations are kind of charming. So the Cheshire Cat is in a tree, and there's Alice. So here's Alice's conversation with the cat that she stumbles upon high in the branches of a tree. Cheshire Puss, she began rather timidly, as she did not at all know whether it would like the name. However, it only grinned a little wider. Come, it's pleased so far, thought Alice, and she went on. Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to walk from here? That depends a good deal on where you want to get to, said the cat. I don't much care where, said Alice. Then it doesn't matter which way you walk, said the cat. "Oh, so long as I get somewhere," Alice added as an explanation. "Oh, you're sure to do that," said the cat, "if you only walk long enough." So that was Lewis Carroll's take on the traveler's dilemma. I want to give you one other person's viewpoint on this, and this is Thomas Carlyle. It's from an essay that he wrote. He lived from 1795 to 1881. He was a Scottish philosopher and writer and mathematician. So Mr. Carlyle says, "A man with a half volition goes backwards and forwards and makes no way on the smoothest road. A man with a whole volition advances on the roughest and will reach his purpose if there be even a little worthiness in it. The man without a purpose is like a ship without a rudder, a waif, a nothing, a no man. Having a purpose in life and having it, throw such strength of mind and muscle into your work as God has given you. So we've heard several different viewpoints on why it's important to know where you're going. The question every person needs to answer for themselves is, just where is that? And nobody can answer that one for you. It's something that you have to figure out by yourself. And the whole purpose of this video is to impress that on you and to give you some techniques for figuring out what that is. Just like the captain of a ship needs to have several different levels of perspective, so will you in your plan. For instance, if the captain is sailing to a distant port, maybe he's sailing from the Americas to Africa. He knows where he's going in Africa, so that's the large-scale vision. But he can't store enough water on his ship to get all the way there, so he's going to have to stop at some intermediate port to get some water to provision his ship to make the rest of the voyage. So that's a smaller level of detail. There may be even a tighter level of detail. Perhaps the casks that water is stored in need some maintenance. And as he's sailing towards even his intermediate destination, the crew is going to have to be doing some work on the casks so they'll be in fit shape to store the water when he gets to his intermediate port. And then there's the day-to-day life of the crew. You know, he's going to have to be making sure there's enough grog to keep everybody happy, etc., and that it's provisioned appropriately. So the captain needs to continually shift between these levels of detail and keep an awareness of them all. If it turns out that he's caught favorable winds, who knows? He may change his plan. He might not need to make an intermediate stop. Maybe he's got enough water to get all the way there. Or on the other hand, perhaps something happens and he's going to have to find another intermediate stop even sooner. So as we each figure out what we're going to do in our life, we also need to take these different levels of perspective. And this is a time when you should probably take notes, because these are things that you want to write down, record, and go back and revisit. So the first largest level of perspective, corresponding to the captain knowing the port that he wants to finally arrive in, would be something like your life goals. What is it that when you're on your deathbed, you'll say, "Oh, I feel like I've done what I needed to. I accomplished whatever it is." Or that when you're on your deathbed, you would say, "Boy, I really didn't make it. I wasn't able to do whatever this is." And this may not be clear to you at first. I'd encourage you to, when you first take a pen and a paper, to write anything down that pops into your mind, however silly it is, as your life goal. An important thing will be to come back and revisit this. And later on, when you revisit, you might think, "Oh, actually that one's kind of silly. I've got this one." So these will undergo continual refinement, but the important thing is to have something there in that position, and then go back and revisit it. So that's the first thing. You'll also want to have some intermediate goals, and what those are, or what sort of time horizons they have, depends somewhat on where you are in your life. But say for a young person, you might have 5-year goals and 10-year goals that you see as places you want to be in the future, and will give you directions to steer for. And these would correspond to intermediate stops on the trip to Africa. If you're 95 years old, well, maybe you don't need a 10-year goal, because you might not even be living that long. Maybe you want a 6-month goal and a 1-year goal. So that's up to you. But the idea is the intermediate steps. And then you probably want a list of your current projects that you're working on. There may be multiple projects if your life is complicated. It may be just 1 or 2 if your life is more simple. And then at the finest level of detail, you want clarity on what you're trying to accomplish this very day, today. So if you can have all these things and maintain these different levels of perspective in your mind, when opportunities arise to advance towards any of them, you'll be able to seize them. And sometimes the opportunity might be towards your 10-year goal, but all of a sudden something pops up that makes you that able to be achieved relatively quickly. Knowing what it is will help you recognize those opportunities. So a key element is, first of all, writing them down. You can do it on paper, you can do it on a computer, however you want to, but just make sure that you write something down. If you don't know what it is, or don't know what your goal is, make something up. And then the other key element is revisit it periodically. You're trying to keep these in your mind, and they will need to change. Life circumstances change. And you will, as you think this over and revisit it, your conceptions are going to become clearer and clearer. So don't hesitate to change these. The important thing is to have them. So over time, I would expect your chart to stabilize. At first, you might have written something pretty silly for your life goal. Tomorrow you might say, oh, I've got a little better one. And then, in a week or two, you might even revise that. But over a period of time, I'd expect to see some fluctuation and then some stabilization. So that will be good for helping you to clarify where you're going. Now, the world evolves around us, and our goals will change. There are some transitions to be expected. The ancient Hindus in their Vedic systems had a kind of chart of a person's life with 4 segments, being a segment as a student where you learn about the world and what you're going to do, a segment as a householder and a worker where you actively participate in the economy and raise your family, a segment as a retired person where you're in more of an advisory role, and then a segment as a wandering ascetic where you're giving up everything basically and preparing to leave the world. So those are kind of expected transitions in that tradition. And anytime you would transition from one of those phases to another, you could expect some kind of disruption. So in the chart that we've been talking about, that would be a time when you would probably have to reorganize, reevaluate your goals at every level, and readjust things a bit. Those are expected. So those are our general life transitions. In addition to those, there are unexpected transitions that may require rejuggling your whole outlook, your whole goals, your whole vision. For instance, perhaps you're a family person and you live on the coast, and a tsunami comes and wipes out your home and your family. Well, probably your goals were built around them and now they're gone. So it's a time for reevaluation. Or perhaps you have a job or a career that you're devoted to, and all of a sudden that's gone. Now you have to reevaluate. So don't be surprised if that comes. Those times are often challenging to do that reevaluation because it involves restructuring your whole mental framework. But the key is the periodic revisiting of your goals. If you're looking at them and you're saying, hey, these really don't work anymore, then it's time to change them and basically start all over with new goals, new directions. That is the end of Charting Your Course video.